Hi everybody. So we're going to read our storytime books today, and today's theme is all about the ocean. So we're going to start with Down to the Sea with Mr. McGee by Chris Van Dusen. Mr. McGee and his little dog Dee loved spending time in their boat on the sea. So early one morning at 6:32, they made a decision that that's just what they'll do. Right after breakfast, McGee packed a lunch, sandwiches, carrots, and a thermos of punch. A big box of raisins, some sweet pickled beets, chocolate chip cookies, and crunchy dog treats. With plans for the day and enough lunch for 3, they hopped in the car and they drove to the sea. The pair left the dock at 7 o'clock and motored their way around Eagle Egg Rock. They passed by the lighthouse and by the old wreck, with McGee at the wheel and Dee on the deck. And suddenly spied off the bow to the east a big pod of whales. There were 50 at least, splashing about in the bright morning sun, feasting on shrimp and sardines by the sun. But one little whale who had eaten his fill, munching on minnows and plankton and krill, was bored with his breakfast, and since he was through, he swam off in search of something to do. You can see our little whale down there. Now Dee and McGee in their boat on the bay didn't notice the whale that was heading their way. They were watching the other whales put on a show, and soon that young whale was directly below. You can see the outline here of our whale. From under the sea, the little whale spied McGee and Dee's boat, but not them inside. He longed for adventure, he wanted to play, so he bumped at the boat in a most friendly way. Then the whale placed his blowhole directly below, and ever so gently he started to blow. McGee saw the bubbles, he felt the boat sway, then up went the boat on a fountain of spray. Higher and higher the little boat flew, as harder and harder that little whale blew. Then the whale blew a blast as hard as he could, much harder in fact than a little whale should. And that final blast blew the boat up in the sky, first 30, then 40, then 50 feet high. The boat kept on rising, but it didn't stop there. Wind hit it hard, and it flew through the air. Dee and McGee sailed over the sea, when all of a sudden, they got stuck in a tree. So there they were stranded, McGee and his pup, on the top of a spruce, 60-something feet up. From their perch in the sky, the two watched in dismay as the whale far below swam swiftly away. McGee was downhearted. Just what could he do? They seemed hopelessly stuck, but little Dee knew. The secret to get the boat safely unpinned was to rock back and forth and wait for the wind. So they rocked and they rocked for an hour or so, but the boat didn't budge because the wind didn't blow. Just when they thought they'd be stuck there all night, they spotted far off a spectacular sight. Away in the distance across the blue bay, the whales, all 50, were headed their way. They swam through the water in one long straight row and gathered around the small island below. McGee looked down at the circle of whales surrounding the island and raising their tails. He felt a bit nervous, a little bit tense, when all of a sudden it made perfect sense. "They're trying to save us," he shouted with glee. "Hold on, Dee, hold on," as tight as can be. Their tails slapped down with a thunderous crash, which in turn created a super high splash that covered the island and raced up the tree and dislodged the boat and set them both free. Dee was so happy she let out a yelp. McGee tipped his hat to the whales for their help. "Thank you, my friends, for saving the day." Then they all waved goodbye and the whales swam away. On the way home, little Dee had a thought. What about all that food they had brought? In all the excitement, they ate not a bite. So they saved it and had it for dinner that night. All right, so next we're going to read Hello, Lighthouse by Sophie Blackall. This book has some of my favorite illustrations. On the highest rock of a tiny island, at the edge of the world, stands a lighthouse. It is built to last forever, sending its light out to sea, guiding the ships on their way. From dusk to dawn, the lighthouse beams. Hello, 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 lighthouse. The new keeper arrives to replace the old, to carry on tending the light. He polishes the lens and refills the oil and trims the burned end of the wick. Throughout the night, he winds the clockwork that keeps the lamp in motion. During the day, he gives the round rooms a fresh coat of sea green paint. He writes in the logbook and threads his needle and listens to the gathering wind. The wind takes a deep breath and blows and blows. Hello, hello, hello. The keeper boils water and drinks his tea, and he fishes for cod from the window. He sets the table and hums a tune and wishes for someone to talk to. Every few days he writes her a letter and throws it into the waves. He tends to the light and writes in the logbook and waits for her reply. The sky grows dark and the waves rise and crash. Hello, hello, hello. The keeper looks through his telescope. The tender arrives, bringing oil and flour and pork and beans and his wife. He shows her around the round rooms of their house. He tends to the light and writes in the logbook and sets the table for two. The fog makes everything disappear. The bell must be rung to warn the ships. Clang, clang, clang. One thick night, disaster strikes. A boat is wrecked on the rocks. Not a moment to lose, the keeper rows out. He pulls 3 sailors from the deep black sea. He tends to the light and writes in the logbook and wraps the sailors in blankets. The sea turns into a carpet of ice. Hello, hello, hello. One dawn, the keeper begins to sneeze. By dusk, he is terribly ill. His wife is everywhere at once, running up and down the spiral stairs. She tends to the light and feeds him broth and ice chips off the lantern room window. She sits by his side and writes in the logbook the minute his fever breaks. The icebergs pass by on their journey south. The whales pass by on their journey north. Hello, hello, hello. Inside the lighthouse, the woman walks around and around the room. Her husband boils water and helps her breathe in and out. He tends to the light and writes in the logbook and notes the birth of their child. The sky erupts in a swirl of green. Hello, hello, hello. The tender arrives, bringing oil and flour and pork and beans and the mail. Along with the fresh books and news from the land, there is an unexpected letter with the Coast Guard seal. The keeper winds the clockwork and polishes the lens, just as he always has done. He tends to the light and writes in the logbook, but knows that it is not for long. Together, they watch the horizon. The Coast Guard arrives with a brand new light and installs the machine to run it. No lamp to fill, no wick to trim. The keeper's work is done. He climbs to the top of the spiral stairs and closes the logbook for good. They pack their belongings into the boat and wave farewell to the gulls. Beyond the breakers, they all look up. Goodbye, lighthouse. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. On the highest rock of a tiny island, at the edge of the world, stands a lighthouse. It is built to last forever, sending its light out to sea. The fog rolls in and the fog rolls out. The waves rise and crash. The wind blows. Hello, hello, hello. Over the waves across the bay, a light on the land beams back. Hello, 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 lighthouse. And there they are in their house on the land looking at the lighthouse. And there's some information in the back all about lighthouses. All right, so we're going to do our craft today, and we're going to make a jellyfish. So what you need is a paper bag, some googly eyes, glue, either paint or a marker, and some scissors. So if you choose to use paint, you should paint the entire area first and let it dry. Move that back and scoot that down. So I am not going to do this super fancy. I'm just going to color my jellyfish purple just a little bit. You can put details on yours and do it however you would like. So mine is all colored purple. And then I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to glue my eyes on. So you want to make sure that the opening is at the bottom and the flap is in the back. So I'm going to glue one eye on, and you can even draw your eyes too if you don't have googly eyes. And I'm going to glue my other eye on. So you can see he's got some eyes now. One of them's a little wonky. And then, to make the tendrils or tentacles, you're going to cut straight lines up from the bottom. Let's move this up a little bit so we can see. So you're just going to cut, not all the way up, but most of the way up. And cut your lines. And they don't have to be perfectly straight. It's a great opportunity to practice some cutting skills. And go all the way up. Alright, and there we have our jellyfish. You could also do it the other way and then have the flap as the head if you wanted to. But there we have our jellyfish, and we are done with our craft. I hope that everybody had a great time with Storytime today. Make sure you log your things in Read Squared, enter your books and things like that, and I hope to see everybody soon. Bye-bye.